I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update for Friday, January the 10th, 2014. An IDF colonel's vehicle was vandalized today while he was visiting the West Bank settlement of Yitzhar. Colonel Yoav Yarom, who is commander of the IDF Samaria Regional Brigade, was meeting with representatives of the settlement to discuss the recent friction in the area between settlers and Palestinians. When he returned to his army vehicle, he found its tires had been slashed. The IDF was investigating. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned the incident and said this criminal act does not represent the settlers in Judea and Samaria. He said, "We won't allow anyone to harm IDF soldiers or commanders. We will find these criminals and bring them to justice." Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon said he views the incident as grave and intolerable, and one that demands the quick and determined attention of the Israeli government and other bodies fighting this phenomenon. Ya'alon said Colonel Yarom, like other commanders in the area, works tirelessly to protect the residents of the area and the other citizens of Israel. And damaging his vehicle is a despicable act done by a small group of lawbreakers who belong behind bars. Israeli Deputy Defense Minister Dani Danon called the vandals a small bunch of cowards, smearing the reputation of the settler population that backs and contributes to the IDF. Earlier in the day, in a separate incident, 3 settlers were arrested at Kibbutz Tirat Tzvi for planning an attack on an Israel Land Authority clerk living there, who distributed demolition orders for illegal structures in the West Bank. The 3 are residents of the West Bank settlements of Talmon near Ramallah and Shadmot Mecholah. Army radio reported that the men had brought gasoline tanks to an illegal demonstration outside the man's house in the kibbutz, and that the clerk had recently handed out demolition orders to the residents of the Esh Kadosh outpost, where settlers and Palestinians clashed earlier this week. Israel's Ministry of Housing and Construction published tenders today for 1,400 housing units in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Leaders from the European Union and from the U.S. had urged Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu not to go ahead with the construction, saying it was harmful to the peace process. There are also those in the Israeli government that oppose the plans. Finance Minister Yair Lapid of Yesh Atid said today that his party would do everything it could to block the building, calling it a bad idea. Palestinian Authority Chief Negotiator Saeb Erekat said the new building was sabotaging the peace efforts. Prime Minister Netanyahu, however, had said at the start of the 9-month peace talks with the Palestinians that Israel would be building throughout, and has timed announcements of the building plans to coincide with Israel's release of Palestinian security prisoners, the most recent round, which took place at the end of last month.
Well, that permits many countries to...
U.S. President Barack Obama has nominated Stanley Fischer as vice chair of the Federal Reserve. The president nominated Fischer today, who is the former head of the Bank of Israel, and holds Israeli citizenship in addition to his American. As many in the media have reported, Fischer was seen as the top pick for the position for some time. He replaces Janet Yellen, who was confirmed earlier this week by the Senate to head the reserve.
For the global economy.
The president said today Stanley Fischer brings decades of leadership and expertise from various roles, including serving at the International Monetary Fund and the Bank of Israel. The president said he is widely acknowledged as one of the world's leading and most experienced economic policy minds, and I'm grateful he has agreed to take on this new role. And I'm confident that he and Janet Yellen will make a great team. The Jerusalem Post reports that the U.S. State Department says that it is not undergoing efforts to get the Arab League to change the language of its 2002 peace initiative that would recognize Israel as a Jewish state. State Department spokeswoman Jen Psaki seemed to deny reports this week that U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry was looking to urge Arab League leaders when he meets with them next week to alter the peace initiative. She said it would not be accurate to say there was an attempt to change the Arab peace initiative. When asked whether the U.S. wanted to see the Arab world recognize Israel as a Jewish state, Psaki replied, "We want to see them support which they've indicated they would. A final status agreement, she said, between the parties. What is included in there is not yet determined. Psaki would not address the issue of whether the U.S. was pressuring the Palestinians to recognize Israel as a Jewish state. We had reported to you yesterday that Palestinian paper Al-Ayam had said that the U.S. negotiating team was looking into the possibility of changing the language in the Arab Peace Initiative to include recognition of Israel as a Jewish state should Israel reach a peace deal with the Palestinians. Israel's foreign ministry summoned the ambassador to Israel of the Netherlands to Jerusalem today in order to clarify the recent divestment of PGGM, the pension fund, from 5 Israeli banks. The ministry's Deputy Director General on European Affairs, Raphael Schutz, met with Dutch Ambassador Caspar Veldkamp and told him that the decision of the PGGM was unacceptable and relies on false pretense. As we reported to you earlier this week, the pension asset managers said on Wednesday that they had divested from the banks because the banks had branches in the settlements or were involved in financing Jewish settlement construction in the West Bank. A ministry statement read that Israel expected the Netherlands, in the spirit of friendship between our countries, to take an unequivocal stance against such steps, which only wreak damage to the relations. Schutz also told Veldkamp that Israel expects the Netherlands to publicly denounce the move. Later today, according to the Dutch news website, Dutch Foreign Minister Frans Timmermans said in a televised interview that the Netherlands opposes divestment from Israel, as well as sanctions against the Jewish state. However, he also qualified his statement, saying that the Netherlands is committed to its anti-settlement stance and discourages Dutch companies from doing business with them. This is the second time in several weeks that Israel has asked for clarification on Dutch divestment from Israel. Veldkamp was also summoned to Jerusalem on December the 12th to discuss the Dutch water company Vitten's decision to cease its joint projects and cooperation with Israeli water supplier Mekorot. Tour guides in Jerusalem discovered what they believe to be a water tunnel from biblical times. Israel's Daily Ma'ariv reported that the tunnel was discovered a few weeks ago during an excursion organized by the Etzion Field School. Yaron Rosenthal, who runs the school for the Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel, estimated the structure predated 586 BC. He said the tunnel, which runs 740 feet, is one of the longest tunnels in the Holy Land used to transport spring water, and that markings, stairs, and carvings suggest that the tunnel belonged to a Judean king. And turning to our Shalom TV programming for tonight, Friday, January the 10th, live Shabbat services are coming up from New York City's Central Synagogue at 6 p.m. Then at 7:30, programming from the recent Union for Reform Judaism's biennial in San Diego, honoring the women of Reform Judaism. And later tonight at 10 p.m., award-winning documentary filmmaker Aviva Kempner discusses the challenges of Jewish documentary filmmaking. That's all coming up tonight here on Shalom TV and ShalomTV.com. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Friday, January the 10th, 2014. I'm Teisha Bader. Shabbat Shalom.